Last summer was rough for me. I was 32 years old and had just moved to the suburbs after my startup failed. The neighborhood was quiet, with identical houses and neat lawns. I thought I could find some peace there, but I was wrong. On my third night in the house, I heard a tapping sound coming from the attic. At first, I thought it was just a branch hitting the roof. But the tapping didn't stop. I lay in bed, heart racing, and listened to it until dawn. Maybe I was just tired. I kept telling myself that nothing was wrong. But it did feel like the walls were closing in on me. As days went by, the tapping grew louder. It seemed like it wanted my attention. I tried to ignore it, but I started noticing strange things. Objects in my house seemed to move by themselves. My coffee mug would be in places I didn't remember putting it. I thought maybe I was too stressed from work, but I felt cold sometimes, like someone was watching me. Things got worse. Shadows flickered past my windows when the sun set. I would turn quickly to look, but there was nothing there. I told myself I was just imagining things. It couldn't be real. But I wasn't sure anymore. I stopped sleeping well. My heart raced at every little noise. One night, I was on my couch, trying to unwind. Then I heard the tapping again, louder this time, like someone was knocking on wood. I got up, my heart pounding, and went to the attic door. I opened it slightly. It was dark. I couldn't see anything. Hesitating, I stood there. Maybe it was just the wind. Perhaps branches were swaying outside. My hands felt clammy on the doorknob. I stepped inside the attic, the cool air hit my face. I reached for the light switch, but I froze. The tapping was gone. I felt something cold brush past my ear. I turned quickly, but nothing was there. My fingers trembled, and I had cold sweat on the back of my neck. What was happening? Weeks went by, and I couldn't shake off what happened. Were those noises real? Were the shadows just my mind playing tricks? Or was something more sinister lurking in my new home? I still had no answers. Then one evening, just as I was about to sleep, I heard a voice whisper my name. It was dark. I turned to look at my window. There was a figure standing there. I blinked, and it was gone. Those moments still haunt me. I see the flickers now and then, but I can't explain them. I sometimes wonder if I should leave my house. It might be a good idea, but a part of me is too scared to let go. I feel like I'm being watched. I just can't shake that feeling. And now my quiet life in the suburbs seems anything but peaceful. The following night, I decided I couldn't take it any longer. I needed answers. I grabbed a flashlight and headed to the attic once more. My heart pounded, but I forced myself to climb the creaky stairs. The tapping had become a haunting rhythm in my mind, a call I couldn't ignore. As I reached the top, I shined my flashlight around the dusty space. Shadows danced across the walls as I moved the beam. There was an unsettling stillness, but I sensed it was different this time. I focused on a corner where the light barely reached. My breath caught when I noticed a small, old trunk I hadn't seen before. Curious, I approached it. The trunk was worn, with rusty clasps that looked like they hadn't been touched in ages. I knelt down and examined the lock. It was broken, slightly ajar. My instincts screamed at me to turn back, but the need to know outweighed the fear. With a gentle tug, I opened the trunk. Inside, I discovered yellowed papers and photographs. They were old, black and white, capturing fleeting moments of families long gone. I rifled through them, but one photograph caught my attention. It was a family standing in front of what looked like my house. A shiver crawled down my spine. I looked closely at their faces and felt a chill sweep through the attic. Something tugged at my memory. There was a resemblance. The man had the same sharp features as me. Could it be? I almost dropped the photo in shock. I turned it over, hoping for answers, but it only had a date, 1952. Nothing else. Who were these people? Why were they here? then I felt a shift in the air, a sudden drop in temperature. The hairs on my arms stood up. I scanned the room with my flashlight, the beam flickering with my mounting anxiety. That's when I heard it again, the tapping. But now it was different. It came from behind me, rhythmic and insistent that I turned slowly, my heart racing. The attic felt like it was closing in on me, shadows creeping closer. I reached for the flashlight, but it flickered and died. I was plunged into darkness, panic set in. I stumbled back toward the trunk, desperate for light, for clarity. My breaths came fast and shallow. Then I heard its soft footsteps on the wooden floor. They were slow, deliberate, right behind me. I wanted to scream, but the sound lodged in my throat. "Hello." I managed to whisper, though I knew no one was supposed to be there, and then everything went silent. The footsteps had stopped. I could feel something, a presence, lingering in the air. My instincts screamed at me to run, but I was frozen in place, trapped between fear and uncertainty. That's when I saw it. A figure emerging from the shadows, its outline indistinct but undeniably there. I couldn't make out any details, but the weight of its gaze pressed down on me. It was watching me. The realization felt like a punch to the gut. What was happening? I had to get out. The dark corners of the attic closed in around me, and I turned to flee, not looking back. I didn't dare to confront whatever was behind me. All I knew was that I needed to leave, needed to escape this nightmare. As I rushed down the stairs, a thought struck me. Could it be connected to the family in the photograph? I felt a surge of dread. If they had been here, if they had once lived in this house, what had happened to them? I made it to the front door and flung it open, the cool night air rushing in to meet me. But I could still feel that unseen presence, lurking just out of sight, waiting for me to return. The questions had only just begun, and now I could feel the weight of the answers pressing down on me. I stood outside for a moment, trying to gather my thoughts. The chill of the night combined with the weight of the attic secrets made my skin crawl. I took a few steps down the porch, breathing in the fresh air and trying to shake off the panic. I had to figure out what was going on. After a couple of minutes, I decided to go back inside. My heart still raced, but there was no way I could sleep without answers. I flicked on every light in the hallway, the warmth pushing back the shadows that felt too familiar. I was alone, but something told me I wouldn't be for long. I paced the living room, the photograph burning in my mind. I needed more information about the family, about what had happened to them. My first instinct was to search the internet, but I knew that wouldn't give me the answers I craved. I needed something more personal, something closer to my family history. Digging through drawers in the living room, I found old bills and documents. Nothing relevant. I moved to the study, skimming through dusty books and papers. I hoped to find a family tree or something that would connect me to those strangers in the photograph. That's when I noticed a worn journal on the shelf, bound in leather. It looked out of place. I pulled it down and opened it carefully. The pages were filled with cramped writing, the ink faded but readable. The entries were dated back to the 1950s. My heart raced as I realized it could contain answers. The first few pages discussed mundane life, grocery lists, daily routines. But as I flipped through, I found a section that caught my attention. The writer detailed strange events happening in the house. Tapping noises. Cold drafts that appeared out of nowhere. People seeing figures out of the corner of their eyes that I felt a chill creep up my spine. The experiences mirrored what I had just gone through. It was as if someone had documented the very same haunting I was now experiencing. I flipped through more pages, desperate for insight. Then I stumbled across a name, Thomas. It was written next to a date. I squinted at the ink, trying to make sense of it. A few lines later, the tone changed. The writer described a feeling that couldn't be ignored, a connection to something dark. The entry ended with a frantic plea for help, but the words became jumbled, almost illegible. I felt the breath catch in my throat. Before I could read further, I heard a noise, a soft but distinct knock, almost like someone tapping their fingers against the wall. It sent a jolt of fear through me. I glanced toward the direction of the sound, holding my breath. At first, I thought I was imagining it. But then the knocking came again, this time louder, more insistent. It was the same rhythmic pattern I had heard in the attic. I dropped the journal, the pages splaying open on the desk. I had to see what was happening. That I stepped cautiously toward the sound, my heart thudding in my ears. The air felt thick, heavy with anticipation. I knew I should turn back, but I was drawn to the noise, pulled like a magnet. And that S when it hit me, what if the tapping was calling out to me? What if it was the answer I sought? I reached the end of the hallway and turned the corner. The knocking continued, more pronounced now. I took a deep breath and pushed open the door to the basement, an area I had avoided since moving in. The moment I descended into the darkness, the air turned cold. I felt a presence again, deeper this time, as if it was inside the walls, waiting for me to take the next step. With each creaking stair I descended, I realized I was beyond the point of no return. And that S when I heard it, a voice, clear and haunting, echoing from the darkness. Help me! I froze, every hair on my body standing on end. I couldn't move. I had come here seeking answers, but now it felt like I was being summoned for something I didn't understand. I stood at the top of the basement stairs, frozen in place. My breath came in soft gasps, mixing with the unnatural chill that surrounded me. The voice rang out again. Help me! I felt the urge to turn and run, but something held me there, like a spell I couldn't break. I strained my ears, trying to gauge where the voice was coming from. It was faint but persistent, urging me deeper into the shadows. Cautiously, I took a step down, followed by another. The air seemed to press against me, thick with despair. Hello? I called out, my voice trembling. Who's down there? Silence answered me, a void that felt almost mocking. Was it a trick of my mind? I took another step, the wooden stair creaking underfoot. In front of me, darkness loomed, swallowing any sense of direction. I forced myself to keep descending, despite the rising panic in my chest. Then, without warning, I saw a flicker of movement at the bottom of the stairs. I squinted into the dim light, but all I caught was a glimpse of something pale, vanishing behind a stack of old boxes. My heart raced, and I gripped the railing tighter, my knuckles white. Is someone there? I whispered, hoping for a response. But once again, there was nothing, just the oppressive silence of the basement. That I glanced up toward the stairs, considering retreat. But the pull of that mysterious voice was strong. I edged closer to the boxes, fighting the urge to turn back. I needed to know what was hiding in the dark, what had sought me out with its plea. As I reached the bottom step, I finally let go of the railing and took a tentative step forward. The cold floor sent a shiver through me. I felt as if I were walking into some unseen trap. I reached for my phone, switching on the flashlight. The beam sliced through the darkness, illuminating the cobweb-covered boxes stacked haphazardly. That S when I saw a figure crouched behind the boxes. My heart hammered wildly in my chest. I couldn't make out details, just the outline of a person. They were still. The voice came again, softer this time, pleading. Help me! I took a deep breath, summoning whatever courage I had. What do you need? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. A flicker of movement caught my eye as the figure started to rise. My blood ran cold. Then everything went dark. That I pulled back instinctively, crashing into a stack of boxes. They tumbled over, scattering contents across the floor. In the confusion, I turned my flashlight back on, scanning the area. The figure was gone. Panic surged through me as I stumbled back toward the stairs, desperate to escape the basement. Had I imagined it? Just as I reached for the banister, I heard the voice again, now directly behind me. You must find him! I didn't look back. I bolted up the stairs, my feet pounding against the steps, adrenaline demanding I escape. Everything felt wrong. As I reached the top and slammed the basement door shut behind me, I realized I couldn't ignore this any longer. What had I just experienced? I needed answers, and now I had more questions than ever. But deep down, I felt that whatever was trapped in that basement was connected to the photograph, to Thomas. And I had to find a way to uncover the truth. The next day, I couldn't shake the feeling of dread that clung to me. I kept replaying what had happened in the basement. That voice. That figure. Who was it? What did it mean by "you must find him"? Determined to understand, I decided to do some digging. I pulled out the old photograph I had found in Thomas's things. He was standing next to a woman, her long hair hiding her face. The place in the background looked familiar, but I couldn't pinpoint it. Perhaps a local spot. I needed to find out who she was. I made my way to the local library, the scent of old books filling my lungs. After browsing the aisles, I found a dusty section about the town's history. I settled at a table and flipped through old newspapers. Each page turned felt like an eternity, but I was searching for anything related to Thomas or that unknown woman. Hours passed, and just as fatigue began to set in, something caught my eye. An article dated over 30 years ago mentioned a woman going missing. Her name was Ellen Miller. I read further, my heart racing. She had vanished without a trace, last seen near the very area where I had found that photograph. The article included a description: dark hair, pale skin, a haunting resemblance to the figure I had glimpsed in the basement that I felt a chill run down my spine. It couldn't be a coincidence. But the more I pieced together, the more questions surfaced. Why was I drawn to this mystery? Was I supposed to find her? I quickly jotted down the details and made my way back home, unease settling in my stomach like a stone. As I crossed the threshold, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Sarah, my friend from college. "Hey, just checking in. Heard you've been exploring some old family stuff. Let's grab dinner soon." Her timing couldn't be worse. I didn't want to speak about what I'd uncovered. But the desperate need to share this weighed on me. I replied, "Yeah, we should. But I might need some time to sort things out." I didn't need to explain everything. Not yet. That I sank into the couch, staring at the photograph again. The light flickered. I stood up, thinking it was electrical issues, but the air felt charged, almost alive. My heart raced as I instinctively reached for my phone. The flashlight, now dimming, was showing me something in the corner of the room, an object creeping out from behind the curtain. That's when I saw it, a small, dusty box. It hadn't been there before. My breath caught in my throat as I approached it, open and empty, except for a single piece of paper with a hastily scrawled message: "You're getting closer." A pulse of dread shot through me. I didn't know what to think. Who had left it? What did it mean? And more importantly, who was ready to be found? I barely slept that night, thoughts swirling in my mind like a storm. The box and its message refused to leave me. Who was trying to guide me toward something? And what if I didn't want to find it? My gut twisted as I considered the possibility that digging further might lead me to something darker than just a missing person. Morning came, and I rubbed my eyes, the remnants of sleep dissipating fast. I needed answers. I glanced at the photograph again, hoping it would reveal something I had missed. The woman's face was still hidden, but I remembered the name, Ellen Miller. I decided to pay a visit to the local archives. There had to be more to her story. The archives were quiet, reflecting the mood that weighed on my chest. A friendly old archivist, Mrs. Thompson, recognized me. "Back for more, dear?" She smiled, but her eyes clouded as she noticed my serious demeanor. "Everything all right?" "Just trying to find out more about Ellen Miller," I said, forcing a smile. "I found some old articles, but I'm hoping there's more." She nodded, veiling concern. "I'll fetch you some files. Just hold on." As I waited, I couldn't shake the feeling that the walls were closing in on me. What would I do if I found something I didn't want to? After a few minutes, Mrs. Thompson returned with a stack of yellowed papers. "Here you go. I hope this helps." Flipping through the documents, I found police reports and witness statements that pointed to the same chilling narrative. Ellen had vanished without a trace, but, surprisingly, a series of strange occurrences had been reported in the area around that time: unexplained noises, distorted reflections, shadows lurking in the corners. A shiver ran up my spine. Then I saw it, a police sketch. The artist had captured a figure seen near the location Ellen vanished. I froze. The figure looked eerily similar to the silhouette I'd seen in the basement. "Are you all right, dear?" Mrs. Thompson asked, her voice pulling me back to reality. I nodded numbly, but my mind was racing. Why hadn't I noticed this before? I gathered the papers and made my way home, my mind racing with new theories. Was the figure in the basement a ghost? A clue? The thought filled me with dread yet excitement. Just as I stepped inside, a chill cascaded over me. The box was on the table again. My heart drummed in my chest as I moved closer. This time, it was closed, and I hadn't put it there. I hesitated, acutely aware that I might be crossing a line I couldn't uncross. I reached for the lid and opened it slowly. Inside was a new piece of paper: "Follow the signs. He awaits." My breath caught at the mention of a he. Who were they referring to? And what awaited me? Before I could formulate a response, a loud crash echoed from the basement door, sending a wave of icy dread through me. I had to know. Someone was in the house. The door to the basement stood partly ajar, a sliver of darkness daring me to cross its threshold. I felt the knot of fear tighten in my stomach. I wanted to run, to hide, but something pulled me forward. I needed answers now more than ever. With trembling hands, I slowly pushed the door open. The hinges creaked, echoing through the silence. I peered down the dimly lit stairs. Shadows clung to the walls, stretching out like fingers reaching for me. My breath grew shallow, but I forced myself to take a step down. "Hello?" I called out, my voice barely more than a whisper. The only reply was the soft rustle of the air. I squinted, trying to make out any shapes in the darkness, my heart pounding in tempo with each step I took. As I reached the bottom, the basement loomed around me, more unfamiliar than before. Boxes stacked high sat in forgotten corners, and cobwebs clung to the ceiling like forgotten memories. I could feel the weight of the silence pressing against me. Suddenly, a faint scraping sound came from the far side of the room. I froze, my heart racing as I strained to see anything at all. The sound became more pronounced, like someone was moving. I stepped forward, my breath hitching in my throat. That was when I noticed it, a glimmer of something metallic, partially hidden under an old tarp. I approached slowly, every nerve in my body protesting. As I pulled the tarp away, I stumbled back in shock. It was a rusted old tool, but my eyes were drawn to what lay next to it, something that looked like clothing. It was tattered and stained, but I could just make out the outline of a dress. My mind raced. Was this connected to Ellen? Panic seized me, but before I could think further, the scratching noise resumed, closer now. "Who is there?" I shouted, a rush of adrenaline flooding my veins. The shadows shifted, and I caught a glimpse of movement. It was just a flicker at first, but it sent a jolt of fear through me. I couldn't tell if it was my mind playing tricks or if something was truly lingering in the darkness. Taking a deep breath, I stepped further into the shadows. "Show yourself," I demanded, but the words sounded weaker than I intended. Then it happened. The shadows seemed to coalesce into a figure. At first, it was only a silhouette, but as it emerged, my chest tightened in terror. I recognized him, the figure from the police sketch. He stood there, watching me. I opened my mouth to scream, but no sound came out. My vision blurred as panic surged within me. I stumbled back, my foot catching on the edge of the tarp, sending me crashing to the floor. The metallic clang echoed like a gunshot, and in that moment, everything went dark. When I opened my eyes, I was still in the basement. The figure was gone. The room felt emptier than before, filled only with the cold air around me. Heart racing, I scrambled up to my feet that I had to get out. There was too much danger here, too many questions that might never get answered. Just as I was about to rush up the stairs, I caught sight of something on the floor, a small, silver object shining in the scarce light. As I picked it up, my blood ran cold. It was a key, ornate and old. The message in the box echoed in my mind, "Follow the signs. He awaits." Now I understood. The key wasn't just an object, it was a path to something that might answer everything. But at what cost? I took one last look around the basement. I wanted to flee, but my curiosity was overwhelming. I would find out what this key unlocked, even if it meant confronting whatever darkness lay ahead. I stood there, the key clenched in my hand, every heartbeat echoing like a countdown. I had to move. Even with the footsteps of terror echoing in my mind, I could not ignore the feeling that there was something here, somewhere, waiting for me to uncover it. That I turned back to the stairs, the light above beckoning me, but I hesitated. What if the key led to something worse? My instincts screamed at me to leave, but a new urgency drummed louder. I took one last glance at the dress and the rusted tool, then faced the wall of boxes stacked haphazardly. That I stepped closer to examine the contents. The boxes were dusty, their labels faded. I pulled one down, barely managing to steady it before the contents threatened to spill out. My eyes widened. Old newspapers. Faded articles on missing persons. I gingerly removed one crumpled page and held it up. Ellen Martinez, age 21, last seen on July 14. Suspected foul play. My stomach twisted as I read the words. There was a picture of her, smiling. I tossed the paper aside, feeling sick. What was I doing? Allowing myself to get lost in this madness could lead me deeper into danger, but I was already here. I couldn't just walk away. I dug through the boxes, adrenaline guiding my hands. Each paper told a story of another life cut short. There were articles about other families, other faces. I felt like I was piecing together a nightmare. Then I came across a smaller box at the bottom. It was locked. My heart skipped. I turned the key in my palm, savoring the weight of it. Would it fit? I knelt and inserted the key into the rusty lock. To my surprise, it turned. The lid creaked open slowly, revealing an array of old photographs, some framed, others loose. My breath caught. Most of them were blurry images taken at a distance, people outside my home, maybe even me, but I had no recollection of meeting them. One photo, however, was different. It showed a group of friends I instantly recognized. Ellen was there, smiling at a picnic. I traced her face with my finger, a sense of connection pulling me forward. But then I saw a face behind her, a shadowed figure, smiling in a way that sent shivers down my spine. It was too blurry to make out more than features. My heart hammered as I felt a tightness in my throat. That was when the room temperature dropped. I glanced around, a chill sweeping through me. The basement had changed, the shadows thicker, more oppressive. I stood up quickly, the boxed contents forgotten. I could almost hear a whisper over the sound of my own breathing. Leave now. I turned toward the stairs, fear morphing every step into a battle against unseen forces. Just as I reached the first few steps, I heard a sound behind me, soft and persistent. The scratching noise returned. Frozen, I turned to face it. The shadows shifted once more, shaping into something darker, more menacing. He awaits, the whisper echoed, now clear. I bolted up the stairs, the key slipping from my fingers. But deep within me, a new fire ignited. I had already come too far. I needed to know who he was, and why this darkness chased me. Just as my hand clasped the doorknob, the basement door slammed shut. My heart dropped. I was trapped, the shadows closing in, ready to reveal whatever secrets they guarded. I stumbled back from the basement door, panic rising. My breath quickened as I placed my hands against the door, the wood cold and unyielding. I could still hear the whisper, now mingling with a low growl, emanating from the shadows. They seemed to pulse with sinister intent. What was waiting for me? I scrambled away, looking around for anything I could use. The boxes still sat scattered, their contents half-heartedly concealed. I moved back toward them, desperate for anything that could help me understand or escape. My hands fumbled with a torn newspaper clipping, and I saw another headline that made my heart race: Disappearance of local women linked to sinister figure. The article mentioned a man in the area, but the details were fuzzy, as if someone had intentionally blurred the truth. Then I saw a black leather notebook lying between the boxes. I opened it, and the pages were filled with frantic scrawls. The handwriting was messy but understandable, detailing strange occurrences in the neighborhood, the sudden disappearances, the whispers at night, and the details about the watcher. I felt a chill as I recognized the name written repeatedly. Ellen. But I was still trapped. The door wouldn't budge. I yelled, pounding against it, my voice edged with hysteria. Let me out. No answer came. Only the incessant scratching intensified. I dropped the notebook, anxiety clawing at my insides. The shadows around me were alive, swirling like smoke, embracing me, smothering every rational thought. That I took a breath and focused on the pictures. What if that shadowed figure was the watcher mentioned in the notebook? Maybe it was tied to Ellen's disappearance. The thought made my spine tingle. I quickly flipped through the photographs again, searching for something, a sign, anything. That was when I found another loose photo, one I hadn't noticed before. It showed a different group of people, the same park where Ellen and I once had that picnic. But there was a clear face in this image. A man with dark hair and an unsettling grin. My pulse quickened. He was staring directly at the camera, his eyes piercing, as if he knew I would find him. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed through the basement. The lights flickered and went out entirely. In the darkness, my heart raced, drowning out all other sounds. Fear gripped me, but curiosity held me in place. I needed to know who this man was. Why did he look so familiar? Then, in the dim light from the street above, I saw a shadow shift near the corner of the room, taking a more defined shape. I gasped, frozen as I realized it wasn't just a trick of the light. It was a figure, standing over the boxes, unmoving. The air thickened with dread. And just like that, I had a decision to make. Would I confront whatever this thing was, or would I keep searching for a way out? I felt the pull toward the figure, an urgency that screamed I was on the brink of something monumental. I took a slow step forward, adrenaline coursing through me. It was now or never. But the question loomed darkly in my mind: who really was he? And what awaited me in the shadows? In that dim basement, the air felt charged with tension. I hesitated for a heartbeat as my pulse thudded in my ears. The figure in front of me stood still, shadows playing tricks around its form. My instincts screamed at me to run, yet a deep-rooted curiosity anchored my feet in place. Who was I about to confront? "Show yourself," I called out, hoping for clarity, but the words came out more like a plea. The figure didn't move, didn't respond. Just as I thought about turning back, the room felt colder, a bone-chilling draft swept through, and the familiar whisper returned. "Help me." My heart raced, memories of Ellen flooding my mind. I was trapped in a story that wasn't just mine anymore. Without fully choosing, I advanced a step, compelled by an unexplainable force. The dim light danced across the shadowed figure, revealing a half-formed outline, a man, features obscured, yet vaguely familiar. "I'm here," I said, my voice stronger than I felt. "What do you want?" The figure stepped forward, and something glittered in its hand. I squinted, urgency overriding my fear. "What do you need? Who are you?" For a moment, there was just silence, thick and almost suffocating. But then it spoke, the voice sending shivers down my spine. "You must find him." "Find who?" I shot back, feeling the weight of confusion build within me. Who are you? Thomas. The name hung in the air, heavy with unresolved despair. My heart sank, connecting the dots. This was the figure in the photograph. This was the identity intertwined with my home's history, with Ellen's history. Where is he? I asked, desperation creeping into my voice. Where can I find Thomas? The figure merely pointed toward the far wall. I followed the direction but saw only shadows. My mind raced back to the boxes. Could there be clues buried within them? No. The figure yelled suddenly, its voice turning sharp, cutting through my thoughts. You must not go there. Where then? I demanded. Free me, it breathed, and in that instant, I could feel an overwhelming sense of anguish emanating from it that I took a step back, heart pounding. My instincts urged me to flee again, to escape this nightmare. It was all too much. I turned to bolt but saw the basement door now stood ajar, an invitation or a trap, I couldn't tell. Help me find Thomas, the figure whispered, now a flicker in the shadows. And maybe you'll find the peace you seek. I hesitated again, half an inch from the doorframe. I knew I should run, but something inside compelled me to stay. What if this was an opportunity to unveil the secret haunting my home? What could possibly await me if I followed through? Realizing I didn't completely understand what reality lay ahead, but feeling the urgency burning within me, I pivoted back toward the figure. I'll help you, I declared with newfound determination. I promise to find him. The figure watched me intently, and I could feel a shift in the room. The heaviness began to dissolve. The shadows pulsed, retreating like a tide, leaving me standing in a patch of clarity. With each breath, I felt connected to whatever shimmer of hope resided in this cursed place. Follow the signs, it whispered again, before fading further into the darkness. As momentum built inside of me, I turned back to the clutter of boxes. I gritted my teeth, forcing myself to rummage through them, my hand brushing against old papers, heavy with history and haunting secrets. Each page told stories of those who had come before me, atrocities hidden in plain sight, lives interrupted, ties severed. With every discovery, another layer of the veil lifted. Hours melted away in that basement, but within the articles and reports I unearthed, I could feel pieces falling into place, clues deep within the fabric of fate itself. Each revelation guiding me closer to uncovering the true nature of the Watcher and perhaps even the fate of Thomas. But who was he really? And why did it all lead back to my family? I was trapped in an uneasy pendulum of curiosity and fear, adrift in the darkness where life and death intertwined. As I stepped outside, a cool breeze washed over me, pulling me from the pit of despair momentarily. I stared back at the house, a twisted sense of belonging gripping me. Had I escaped the clutches of darkness, or was it all merely the prelude to something far worse? At that moment, doubts lingered like shadows, enveloping my thoughts. I felt the pulse of an unfinished story thrum beneath my skin. I left with more questions than I could comprehend, but deep within, the certainty of one truth echoed back: the past was not finished with me yet. My journey had just begun, and somewhere in this tangled history, Ellen, Thomas, and the mysterious shadows awaited resolution, whether I was ready or not.